So, what do a 14-year-old texting about pizza, a sperm whale with an 8-kilogram brain, and a middle class London toddler with an 18th century bone disease all have in common?
I mean, it sounds like total absurdity, right? But they are actually all critical pieces of a much larger puzzle regarding how we communicate and, just move through the world.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to another deep dive. Our mission today is highly specific. We're looking at how to help you level up your daily conversational English.
Right, because fluency isn't just about passing a grammar test.
Exactly. So we have this massive stack of materials in front of us covering everyday survival English at the mall, the really nuanced rules of corporate code switching, and some deep BBC medical discussions on health and society.
It's a huge range of topics.
It is, but we are extracting the exact vocabulary you need to sound like a natural in literally any situation. And more importantly, we're dissecting the intonation and delivery that actually builds that fluency.
Well, we really have to start at the foundation, I think,
Oh,
because
yeah.
before anyone can effectively navigate, say, a complex office promotion or debate public health, they have to master the absolute basics of human interaction.
Right, you can't skip
You
steps.
really can't.
Yeah.
And the ultimate proving ground for this is the shopping mall. I mean, it is a controlled environment designed almost entirely around transactional conversations.
Yeah, the vocabulary of retail navigation is fairly universal, right?
Yeah.
Finding the food court, locating a fitting room or changing room, depending on where you are, understanding standardized sizing like small, medium, large.
Taking a receipt from a cashier, all of that.
Exactly. But simply knowing those words doesn't make someone fluent. I always think of these foundational phrases like learning the basic chords on a guitar.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, because if you have to stop and think about exactly where your fingers go to form a G chord, you can't actually play the song. If you have to mentally translate every single word while just trying to find a bathroom, the conversation grinds to a halt.
It completely stalls. And the underlying psychology there is cognitive load. A transactional setting, like a food court, comes with a very expected social script.
Right.
The cashier asks, "What would you like?" And the expected fluent response is a direct, standardized phrase. Something like, "One slice of cheese pizza, please."
Or if you're lost, using that ultimate magic question to ask a stranger, "Excuse me, where is the bathroom?"
Yes, exactly. And mastering these scripts isn't just about politeness. It's a functional requirement for your brain.
Okay, wait. Explain that mechanism for us. Why is standardizing the questions so important for the brain's function?
Well, when you're operating in second language, your working memory has a limited capacity, right?
Mm.
So if you spend 80% of your process power just trying to conjugate verbs and form the question, "Excuse me, where is the fitting room?"
Your brain is exhausted by the time the words leave your mouth.
Exactly. You only have 20% of your cognitive capacity left to decipher their answer. And the answer is entirely unpredictable. I mean, the store clerk might just point, or they might give you a complex three-step direction involving escalators and landmarks.
Wow. So if you have the question locked in as pure muscle memory, complete with that native rising intonation, it takes basically zero processing power to ask it.
Right, you save 100% of your brain power to actually listen to the response.
You have the basic chords down so you can just play the song. I love that.
It is the crucial first step. But the language of the mall is highly context dependent.
Mm.
If you take that exact same casual direct script and deploy it in a corporate environment, the communication structure completely breaks down.
Oh, 100%. Let's get into workplace code switching. Moving from informal, everyday English to formal, professional English. If you're building a mental list of common, formal versus informal phrases right now, pay attention because the gap between the two is massive.
It really is. Take the acronym ASAP.
As soon as possible.
Right. Using that in a text to a roommate about picking up dinner is perfectly natural.
Yeah, of course.
But if you're panicking right now because you just wrote ASAP in an email to a major client, there's a reason for that anxiety. In a corporate setting, writing ASAP makes you sound like a 14-year-old demanding pizza.
Oh, absolutely. It's way too aggressive. The formal equivalent you need to internalize for the office is something like, the meeting will be rescheduled as soon as possible. It conveys the exact same urgency, but carries an entirely different weight.
The exact same mechanism applies to apologies, too.
Oh, this is a big one.
Right. If you bump into a coworker in the break room, a quick "sorry for any problems" is entirely appropriate.
Sure.
But if a critical shipment is delayed and you tell a client "sorry for any problems," The phrasing actually minimizes the client's frustration. It sounds dismissive.
You have to step it up. The required code switch is, I apologize for any inconvenience caused by the delivery delay. But I do struggle with this concept a little bit, though, because if I'm sitting at my desk typing out, I apologize for any inconvenience, when I would literally never naturally say that in my own home, isn't it just a costume?
How so?
Well, a lot of career advice tells young professionals to, act professional, but it often just feels like putting on a performance.
I see what you mean. It's a common trap to view formal English as a theatrical role. But clients and colleagues are incredibly adept at detecting a performance.
They can tell if it's fake.
They absolutely can.
Yeah.
They don't just process the vocabulary, they analyze the delivery. If it's just a costume, it sounds rehearsed and hollow. True code switching isn't faking a new personality. It's adapting your genuine self to the context of the room.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's understanding that formal vocabulary is a tool used to demonstrate respect for the other person's time and business.
And that distinction between having the vocabulary and having the underlying professional impact is highlighted in a great workplace anecdote from our sources.
Oh, the story about Lucy.
Yes, Lucy. So there's this young employee, Lucy, who earns a 15% raise in her first 6 months. And she didn't just use corporate jargon. She embodied a specific cultural idiom, never put off until tomorrow what you can do today.
Extreme dedication.
Exactly. But meanwhile, a disgruntled coworker demands a promotion simply based on his tenure. Management denies it because, despite his long history at the company, he hasn't actually generated any profit. He had the presence, but not the impact.
Right. And when workplace communication fails entirely, the results are often completely absurd, like the case study regarding a professional named Henry.
Oh my gosh, Henry.
So Henry arrives at the office one morning and is entirely silent. He just stops using his normal, friendly English.
Wait, entirely silent? Like he just wouldn't talk to anyone?
Right, he doesn't greet anyone, he barely speaks during meetings, and he completely withdraws from the social script of the office.
And people obviously freaked out, right?
Oh, completely. His team does what human beings always do when faced with an unexplained lack of communication. They fill the void with their own catastrophic assumptions.
Right, they assume he is going through this massive life crisis. They wonder if he's going through a terrible breakup or if he's bankrupt.
They go so far as to organize an intervention to cheer him up.
But the reality of Henry's silence was entirely physical, not emotional.
He had just forgotten to brush his teeth.
He was terrified his breath smelled bad, so he literally just clamped his mouth shut. It is a hilarious misunderstanding, but it proves a massive point, When Henry broke his normal conversational English patterns, the entire office ecosystem destabilized.
That's a great way to put it. When Henry stopped communicating, he was instantly isolated from his team. But if we pull back and look at this on a broader scale, that inability to connect or find the right words isn't just an office quirk. It is driving a massive public health crisis.
Yeah, let's transition into the vocabulary of society and connection here. We're looking at a modern epidemic of loneliness. And the data here is just staggering. Nearly half of British adults, around 26 million people, report feeling lonely at least some of the time.
And to address it, we need a highly specific emotional vocabulary. It requires moving beyond simple statements like, I am sad, to expressing complex states of isolation.
Right, words like feeling left out or craving someone's company or admitting that you have no one to turn to.
Exactly.
Why is that specific phrasing so critical, though? Is it just about expressing yourself clearly to a therapist?
No, it's actually a medical necessity.
Wow.
Prolonged loneliness is not merely a fleeting emotional state. It's a physical stressor on the human body.
Really?
Yes, it triggers continuous cortisol release, which places individuals at a measurably higher risk for severe outcomes like clinical depression, dementia, and cardiovascular disease. Giving someone the exact English phrasing to articulate that they have no one to turn to allows them to signal for an intervention before it becomes a physical medical crisis.
Wow. And there is a truly devastating story about a woman named Bep de Bruin that illustrates the extreme end of this isolation. She was 74 years old, living in Rotterdam. She had lost contact with her child and lived an entirely solitary life.
It's so tragic.
It is. When she was finally found dead in her apartment, the investigation revealed she had been dead for 10 years.
A full decade. Sitting in a bustling modern European city, and her absence went completely unnoticed by society.
But out of that horrific tragedy, a targeted solution actually emerged. Her story sparked a project in the Netherlands called Oma's Zoek, which translates to grandma's soup. The mechanics of it are absolutely brilliant.
They really are.
Two young men noticed the elderly generation slipping into total isolation. At the same time, they looked at their university peers who had massive pockets of free time, those hours between classes and part-time jobs.
Right, so they identified two completely different societal resources and used the concept of bringing together to solve the problem. They brought the isolated elderly together with the students.
And the students used their free time to chop vegetables, cook soup, and simply provide conversational connection.
It's a perfect example of how language allows us to identify a systemic problem, like 26 million people craving connection, and actively build a vocabulary-driven solution.
Yeah, and that takes us from the emotional health of society straight into the physical health of the human body. Because our materials cover advanced English idioms used to describe some truly wild medical paradoxes.
Let's examine the hygiene paradox and how it relates to early childhood development. Because for roughly the first month of a newborn's life, their immune system is essentially switched off. It's a blank slate.
And obviously, the natural instinct of a modern parent is to protect that blank slate by keeping the baby in a perfectly sterile environment. You want to boil the bottles, keep the dog away, bleach the floors.
But the biological reality requires the exact opposite. An infant's immune system actually needs to get exposed to the world.
Yeah.
It requires contact with pet dander, dirt, and everyday bacteria.
Right.
That bacteria needs to colonize or permanently settle and multiply inside the infant's gut microbiome.
Okay, but how does dirt in the gut translate to a functioning immune system? That sounds backwards.
Well, the gut microbiome acts as a training manual for the immune system. Without diverse bacteria present to teach the body the difference between a harmless protein and a dangerous pathogen, the immune system remains uneducated.
Oh, I see.
So when that child later encounters a harmless food, like a peanut, the uneducated immune system panics and launches a massive disproportionate attack. This lack of early exposure is a leading theory behind the explosive rise in severe food allergies.
That makes so much sense. And it is crucial to use the correct medical vocabulary here because a severe, life-threatening allergic reaction is called anaphylaxis.
Yes.
If someone goes into anaphylactic shock, their throat swells and their blood pressure drops, you cannot treat that with penicillin. Penicillin is an antibiotic designed to kill bacteria. It does absolutely nothing for an overreacting immune system.
Right, you have to administer adrenaline, which forces the blood vessels to constrict and the airway muscles to relax.
And the same modern anxiety surrounding food leads us to the paradox of middle-class children in London developing rickets. Rickets is a severe bone-weakening disease caused by a prolonged deficiency in vitamin D and calcium.
Historically, it was an 18th century disease, or something seen in severely malnourished populations.
Yet it's showing up in wealthy 21st century neighborhoods. And why? Because of the free-from craze. Parents with intense food anxiety are buying expensive products labeled free from gluten or free from dairy.
Right, even when your child has no proven medically tested allergy.
Exactly. They are voluntarily stripping essential fortifying nutrients from their children's diets in the pursuit of a theoretical, trendy wellness ideal. They're accidentally causing historical malnourishment.
It is a profound misalignment of priorities. And this deep dive into diet also brings us to the energy demands of the human brain. Because the human brain accounts for roughly 2% of our total body weight, yet it monopolizes 20% of our daily energy intake.
It is an incredibly demanding organ, although as a fun point of comparison, if you want the absolute largest brain in the mammal kingdom, you look at the sperm whale, which hauls around an 8-kilogram brain.
That is massive.
Yeah, but for our much smaller human brains, maintaining that 20% energy supply requires a highly stable diet to remain sharp, to keep our cognition intelligent, fast, and observant.
And the modern struggle is feeding that brain without triggering a sugar rush.
Oh, right.
A sugar rush provides a massive temporary spike in blood glucose, followed by a severe crash that just destroys cognitive focus. The practical vocabulary provided to combat this is batch cooking.
Yeah, basically taking a Sunday afternoon to cook a massive amount of balanced food, portioning it out, and freezing it. That way, on a busy Wednesday night, you can produce a nutrient-dense meal in 20 minutes flat, meaning exactly 20 minutes with no delay.
And maintaining that chemical balance becomes exponentially more difficult during pregnancy, which introduces an entirely new set of physiological idioms.
Oh, definitely.
When a woman is pregnant, the biological demand means she's eating for two. And the hormonal shifts cause the body's normal regulatory systems to go completely haywire.
Haywire is such a perfect descriptor. It means a system has stopped working properly and has become erratic. A woman might suddenly experience constant nosebleeds when previously she could count her lifetime nosebleeds on one hand.
And the cravings also go haywire. The body demands specific, immediate inputs, whether it's salty chips or sardines.
Right.
But if a pregnant woman succumbs to a late-night chocolate binge, consuming a massive quantity in a short, uncontrolled window, she often experiences intense psychological guilt alongside the blood sugar spike.
Yeah, and a nutritional therapist addresses this guilt using an incredibly vivid historical idiom in our sources. She advises pregnant women that when they do slip up and binge, they must not get out the cat o' nine tails.
Which is such a striking image. The cat o' nine tails was a multi-tailed whip historically used by the British Royal Navy and penal systems to physically punish prisoners.
It's brutal. So the therapist is using it as a metaphor for extreme self-punishment. The advice is, do not give yourself a hard time. Your body is undergoing immense physiological stress, building a human skeletal and nervous system from scratch.
Do not mentally whip yourself over a bowl of chips.
Exactly. Just focus on avoiding genuinely dangerous pathogens like the Listeria bacteria sometimes found in smoked salmon.
Right. Now, the final medical paradigm we need to examine involves how cultural history dictates dietary health, specifically regarding salt intake. The World Health Organization is definitive. A healthy daily salt intake should be under 5 grams, which is roughly 1 teaspoon.
But if you travel to Astana, the capital of Kazakhstan, the data shows the average daily intake is an astonishing 17 grams a day.
It is more than 3 times the global limit.
Why is it so high?
The mechanism behind this goes back to their nomadic heritage. Historically, nomads traversed the Central Asian steppes with their livestock. To survive the brutal, barren winters, they had to preserve their meat, altering its chemistry to prevent bacterial decay. And the primary technology for that was salt.
Right, and meat naturally absorbs a massive amount of salt. When preserved, meat can become up to 19% salt, compared to something like a carbohydrate paste or pasta, which might only hit 7%.
So the traditional Kazakh diet, heavily reliant on preserved meats and hearty dairy, is inherently loaded with sodium.
Historically, that salt kept them alive. But when you transplant that traditional high-sodium appetite into a modern, sedentary lifestyle filled with highly processed foods, the physics of the human circulatory system buckle.
It's just too much for the body to handle.
Exactly. Excess salt in the bloodstream draws in water through osmosis. This dramatically increases the total volume of blood fluid. The heart has to pump exponentially harder to push that increased volume through the arteries, leading to severe high blood pressure and an increased mortality rate.
And a global nutrition expert suggests that to solve this, public health officials need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, lecturing a Kazakh citizen about a strict 5-gram limit ignores their deeply ingrained cultural palate. The solution requires a culturally tailored approach, slowly adjusting the sodium levels in their specific traditional foods.
Right.
You know, I actually see a massive parallel here between these wellness trends and the entire concept of learning conversational English that we've been talking about.
Really? What is the connection?
Well, in both fields, people tend to hyper-focus on the exact wrong details and miss the bigger picture. Like, in health, we get obsessed with cutting out gluten or debating the exact gram count of salt, while completely forgetting the absolute fundamental necessity of a healthy gut microbiome and basic vitamin D.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, and in language learning, people obsess over dropping a casual slang term like ASAP to sound native, or they try memorizing endless lists of idioms, and they completely neglect the fundamentals, like the profound importance of code switching into a formal apology to save a professional relationship, or just mastering the native intonation of a basic mall transaction.
That aligns perfectly with the core directive found across all these learning materials. True fluency is not achieved through silent memorization.
Exactly. The ultimate actionable tip to extract from this deep dive for you, the listener, is this. You must mimic the intonation. You have to practice these daily conversations out loud.
Knowing the word receipt or haywire is useless if your delivery is entirely flat.
Right. The music of the language, the rhythm, the rising polite tone of a question, the steady cadence of a formal apology is what actually transmits your meaning.
Because language is physical muscle memory. It requires the physical act of speaking to solidify the cognitive pathways.
We have covered immense ground today. From the cognitive load of ordering a slice of pizza to the precise phrasing that prevents a late delivery from ruining a corporate account.
We explored the medical urgency of expressing loneliness, the immune system's requirement for dirt, the energy demands of a sperm whale's brain, and even the physics of salt in the bloodstream.
It's been a lot. And every single scenario requires a specific vocabulary, but more importantly, a specific understanding of how those words impact the listener.
Absolutely.
Consider this as you go about your day. As artificial intelligence becomes more integrated into our lives, algorithms are beginning to predict our texts and draft our corporate emails. The machines are starting to do the code switching for us.
They will automatically change our informal thoughts into formal